bring in Chris Sims, Pro Football Talk Live co-host, the show that precedes ours on Peacock. And, of course, he's an analyst for Football Night America. Let me start with the poll question. The quarterback who was drafted this weekend who is in the best position to succeed is who?
Ooh, the best position to succeed there. That's a good question. I haven't really thought about it through, that lens or frame there. Who
would come to mind right away?
Well, I think what came to mind right away a little bit was just the perfect marriage, and I kind of know what it's going to look like and how it's going to look like with Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen, right?
Okay.
I think that's where I look at it. I wondered what direction the Colts would go in the draft. Shane Steichen, he was with Justin Herbert in his rookie year, and they were throwing bombs all down the field, so I thought, well, maybe they'll go a Will Levis or that, or what direction is this offense going to go? Now we know what direction it's going to go, and they get Anthony Richardson, who's extremely talented. He's raw, and he has to play. And that's where I think the situation's really good, too. So not only is the scheme perfect for him, but Anthony Richardson, like Trey Lance a few years ago, Dan, we had those conversations. You can't go another year of, let him sit on the bench and learn. His number one issue is he hasn't played, and I think that's why Colts are a great situation for him, too.
Why did we think, and I think you had him in your mock draft, that Will Levis could end up with the Colts?
Well, I think that, one, knowing Chris Ballard through time and talking to him a few times and knowing, like, he's into big-time traits, elite traits, right? Things about guys that go, ooh, whoa, that's special. Nobody can do that. And now we can build around that. And, hey, coaches, you make them better in some of those other departments. So I had him kind of pinned as one of those type of guys. And, those are the two guys that kind of had the elite traits. We know Richardson and Levis probably had the two strongest arms in the draft. They definitely did. So that's kind of where I pinned it. And then I worried about, all the S2 talk with C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud was my favorite quarterback. But the one thing I know about the S2 and people around the NFL and all my friends and connections there, it doesn't predict success. But to this point, it's predicted failure, or not 100%, but pretty close. And I think that's what scared people, too. So I wasn't sure if they would feel comfortable with Stroud at 4.
But then Levis starts to fall, and then I wonder if this is where mock drafts can do a disservice to a player.
Sure.
Because we look at it and we go, oh, my God, he's dropping. When sometimes the professionals get in there and start assessing these guys before the writers do this and give you a mock. We got a mock draft already for next year.
Yeah, right.
And now you're already up there, and then you start to fall. Well, it's the player that we're blaming, not the person in the mock draft who put them up them too high. And Will Levis it just felt like he was too high.
Yeah, well, I think everyone bought into the hype. There was a little hype from last year that carried over into this year. He looks exactly the way you want the franchise quarterback to look, right? He's smart and handsome and, looks good on the podium. And then, of course, he's got a rocket right arm. So all those things fit the bill of, he's got to be a top 10 pick. He was quarterback in the SEC, all of that. But Dan, it drives me crazy. Unqualified people making qualifying statements all the time goes on in this business. And I even think of the Notre Dame tight end, Michael Mayer, phenomenal player, right? You were led to believe that he was a top 10 pick before the draft process. Baby Gronk and Notre Dame and everything there. And it's not fair to him that the expectations are put up so high. And I think you're right, Dan. I know I had friends and people I talked to that saw Levis the same way I did. I like some of the things about his physical tools, but it's just inconsistent. And it's all over the place in a lot of different areas to where, I couldn't have picked him in the top 6, 7, 8 picks. That wouldn't have been for me. And I think there was a lot of teams that felt like that, and that's kind of why he kind of kept falling down the round.
We had Matt Miller from ESPN, one of their draft analysts. And I said, what happens next year? If you look at these quarterbacks who weren't eligible, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Michael Penix, these are really talented quarterbacks and would probably have been taken ahead of all of these quarterbacks this year.
I think so. I really like C.J. Stroud. I think he is damn good and he's made for the NFL. And I think he's in a good spot as far as the offensive fit. They need some talent down there in
Would
Houston.
you have taken him over these quarterbacks, Caleb Williams?
Yeah.
Drake May?
This is where it's hard. It's hard. Like, I'll say this, all right? Before the process started and before I dove into film, right, because I didn't study them, but before that, just off of TV scouting, I was going Penix up at Washington, Caleb Williams. I was going, those are the top 2 quarterbacks in football. I go, Penix should come out. He's going to be the first pick draft. He's going to be the first pick of the draft. Caleb Williams, I knew he couldn't come out, but I was going, he's number 1 pick next year. I mean, he's the closest thing I've seen to Mahomes and that kind of play, since Mahomes in college. So, yeah, I think there's a very real possibility that if those 2 were out this year, that those 2 would be at the top of the list there.
Okay,
I don't doubt that at all.
But Miller said this. He said, I see Arizona on the clock at 1 next year. They take Caleb Williams and move on from Kyler Murray.
Whoa, okay. I mean, that's a bold move right there. I don't, that is like goes into a lot of things. One, with his contract situation and can they get out of it after next year? I'm not sure they can, right? Kyler Murray, as we know, there's some negatives about him, but man, you'd have to be sold that this guy is just the absolute next thing because, Kyler still has some really special things about his game, and he's got some elite traits that we were just talking about with Chris Ballard there, where you go, he can do some things that nobody else can do. So I would always be a little hesitant about throwing that overboard.
He's Chris Sims, Pro Football Talk Live co-host. Who had the best weekend? What team?
I mean, it pains me to say it as a Giants fan, but I mean, who had the best weekend? The freaking Eagles. I want to throw a bunch of 4-letter words at those mother effers out there. Okay? I mean, damn, they got the 90s Eagles defense and the 92 Cowboy offense. That's what they're rolling into the 2023 season with.
Wow.
I mean, holy crapola. I was on Twitter on Friday night going, mercy. I mean, I give up. This is unfair. It's the greatest team building I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, to get the best player in the draft at 9, to get maybe just pure natural pass rushing talent, the second best one in the draft, in my opinion, at 30, and then everything else they got along with it. You think
Carter was the best player in the draft?
I do. I think Jalen Carter was the best player in the draft. Yeah, I think if he doesn't
regardless
have some
of position, because like Bijan Robinson to me is a star.
He's up there, definitely in that discussion, too, to what you're saying. I mean, he's right there. But, yeah, Jalen Carter was the best interior D lineman I've ever evaluated coming out in the draft. Like, he's, Jerome Brown, Warren Sapp-ish, right? It's that kind of guy, and that's where I think he's really special.
But there's concerns.
Yes, there is. They're right. There's some off-the-field concerns. I know that. Right, and that's why Philly's perfect, because Jordan Davis' buddies there. Nakobe Dean, they drafted him last year. He's been the quarterback of that Georgia defense. He's there. He's got, of course, 2 teammates going in there with him this year to help support him. Yeah. He's got a guy like Fletcher Cox, who's a Hall of Fame D tackle, to show him the way. So if there was one spot to land, this was the absolute greatest spot for him to land and flourish as a person and a professional.
As I'm watching the draft, I don't do social media, but I'm watching going, the Jets just got robbed. They wanted an offensive lineman, and, they got caught.
Right.
It felt like the Cowboys got caught.
Yeah, the tight end,
yes.
Right?
Right. Because Jerry Jones can say whatever he wants, Chris. But if you watch that war room, those guys
definitely
did not know if they should be celebrated. It's almost like, is this a good thing? And then they almost had to be reminded, we're on camera. Yeah, that's who we wanted.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
No doubt. Dalton Kincaid, I think, Dan, was, and that's what the interesting thing about the draft. You had Jalen Carter. You had Tyree Wilson. Jalen Carter and Tyree Wilson, I think, were the top 2 players on a lot of people's board. But Tyree Wilson had the foot injury. Nolan Smith, I think, was a top 10 player for everybody, but he had the pectoral injury. Jackson Smith and Jigba. Dalton Kincaid. I think all these guys were top 15 players on everybody's board, but they had little medical issues or issues that kind of made them fall. And Kincaid he's phenomenal. But you're right. I mean, it was one of the few needs that football team needed there in Dallas, and everybody read the room the right way and thinking they might go there. The Jets, hey, It stinks they lose their tackle. It's the price you got to pay to get Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. And
I don't think they needed another player on defense.
Well, I think they're one that we got to think of where Robert Saleh came from, right, Dan?
Yeah.
He came from the Seattle Seahawks and the 49ers. He went to Super Bowls with those teams because they had defensive linemen falling off trees, right?
Yeah, but you have to protect Aaron Rodgers.
Well, I think if I had to just give their side of the story, I would go like this. I think they think, and I know a little of this because my dad and brother work out with Mekhi Becton in Jersey. He's in phenomenal shape. So I think they're feeling good about that. Mm-hmm. They have Max Mitchell, who played for them last year, who they really like. And then I think they're hopeful that Dwayne Brown, can stay healthy and figure out the year that way. So, yeah, it's a little bit of a gamble. But if they are healthy up front, the Jets' O-line is better than people are giving it credit for. And now they have waves of defensive linemen coming at you, too. So they're still in a very good spot and one of the better rosters in football.
How would you like to be Marvin Harrison right now, that you would have been, a top 5 pick, I'm guessing?
Yeah,
and
right.
And now you have to go back to college. Now, now NIL is going to give you maybe $1 million, but you have nothing to prove. You got a new quarterback, and you're a marked man, but you have to go back to Ohio State.
This is where, I wish the NFL, would use a little common sense in these type of situations. Every now, like Yogi Berra says, common sense ain't that common, and it definitely is not with some of these conversations here where, hey, the guy we just talked about, Caleb Williams, he's another one.
I know.
Why can't the NFL get together as a group and go, you know what? Oh, hey, we got 2 or 3 guys this year that we think, can come out early instead of risking it and going back to Ohio State or whatever like you're talking about and doing that where, yeah, he could have came out, started making money, started his NFL career.
But what if you had
been the number one guy?
How about a consensus, Chris?
Yeah.
If you got an unbiased panel that was assessing Marvin Harrison and Caleb Williams and said, we're all in agreement that they're top 5 picks.
Right.
And if they want to come out, now, we've been wrong. You go to Christian Hackenberg and everybody thought he was a number 1 pick. Leonard Fournette could have come out. Adrian Peterson could have come out. Marshall Faulk.
Exactly.
There's certain players where you go, it's not fair that guy's got to go back. Herschel Walker. It's not fair that they're going back to college.
No, I like your idea there. I do. Where they could set up some sort of NFL Legends Club, ex-players like a Derek Brooks and a Warren Sapp and, maybe a retired GM and some other front office people where, they could come together and go, hey, let's evaluate this for what it is. And like you said, go, okay, these guys are ready. Let's let them come out and everybody else has to adhere to the rules.
Whenever we watch the draft, it feels like every team got the guy they wanted and everybody's going to work out. And it's like less than 50% that they work out. The team that had the worst draft pick, in your opinion?
Oh, wow. That's a good one there. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to come up with that right off the top of my bat. Right off the top of my head here. Let me just look at my computer here.
Okay, did the Lions, they took Gibbs at 12 and they took Campbell. Okay, those are 2 positions that they took them too early, in my opinion.
Right. All right. So I'm with you there. I don't love Jordan Addison by the Vikings in the 20s. That'd be one that I'd go, that is way too early for me.
Okay.
Jordan Addison's a good route runner, but plays after the catch and things like that. That's one that confuses me. I had a feeling you were going the Lions route there. I was literally looking at them on my sheet of paper here. Okay. This is where I'll defend the Lions just a little bit, right? Where agreed with you. Jahmyr Gibbs, they probably could have got him 10, 15 picks later. Jack Cohen, probably another 10, 15 picks, 20 picks maybe even later, right? But I do think they had those guys earmarked as far as, those are guys we need at the position and we like them the best and we felt that they fit our culture. And if they got the guys they wanted, and so be it that it might be 15 or 20 picks before they should. I'm not going to be mad at them for ultimately addressing the need they needed on their football team with the exact guys they wanted just because they overdrafted, like I said, 10 or 15 spots. So overall, yeah, that's the negative about the Lions draft. But damn, they needed a big-time tailback. They needed a middle linebacker badly. They needed another tight end in Sam Laporta. We know they need help in the secondary, right, with Devin Witherspoon not being there. They get Brian Branch, the quarterback. So I really think they did a lot of great things for their team. But, yeah, to be nitpicky, they overdrafted those first two by a little bit, yes.
What was it like for you when you were drafted?
Oh, gosh. But, I mean, it was a horrible great experience altogether in one. The night before, I started to get a feeling that I might drop. I went into the process thinking the Raiders might take me at the end of the first round. The Ravens were involved in it, right? They decided to go with Kyle Bowler, if you remember correctly. Ooh. The Raiders had the last two picks of the first round. Al Davis had basically led me to believe that they were going to take me with one of those last two picks. So I thought I was going in the first round, right? Then the night before the draft, my agent was like, hey, I don't have a spot for you and anything like that. And I ended up being the last pick of the third round. So, I spent most of the first round waiting to get picked. The second round, I sat there mother effing the NFL, and then I got picked.
The Raiders passed on you 5 times.
I know they obviously did not like me. That's for sure. Yeah. Why are you laughing so hard, you jerk?
I'm laughing with you. I'm laughing with you. I didn't get drafted. I didn't get drafted.
No, you're just busy making millions on radio and everything else. You're doing all right.
I'm doing okay. Hey, yes. Good to talk to you. Thanks again.
Always. Anytime, man. Tell all the guys I said hi. Be good.
Guys, Chris Sims says hi.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, guys.
Yeah. I like how it's like, Al Davis led me to believe they're going to take me at the end of the first round. Yeah, they passed on you there. And then the second round and the third round, too.